scholars, and welcome to Count on Us. I am glad you could join us today. This show will help you become a successful mathematician by assisting you with understanding and making sense of word problems along with other mathematical concepts. You are going to learn so much from watching this show. I'm excited. Are you excited? Let's get started.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Count on Us, Reasoning and Problem Solving, Math 6 edition. My name is Coach Lewis, and I will be assisting you with becoming a successful mathematician. Today we will be looking at Standard 6 NS7. Your goal for today is, I can explain how to use the number line to compare integers. Now let's get started. Our problem for today has two parts. Part A reads, plot the location of -2 and -9 on the number line. Let's take a look at the number line. In the middle is 0. To the left of 0 is -10, and to the right of 0 is +10. This means that to the left of 0 we have negative numbers, and to the right of 0 we have positive numbers. Now, since -2 and -9 are both negative numbers, their locations on the number line will be to the left of 0. So let's plot -2. -2 is 2 units left of 0. Now let's plot -9. -9 is 9 units to the left of 0. Wow, we have satisfied part A. Now let's look at part B. Part B says, use mathematical symbols to write an inequality that compares -2 and -9. Explain how the number line can be used to show that your inequality is correct. Let's look at what this is asking us to do. I'm going to underline some important words that will help me. So, we're going to write an inequality. To determine which inequality symbol to use, we need to think about which number is greater, -2 or -9. Which number do you think is greater? Excellent. -2 is greater than -9, so we will use the greater than symbol. Now the next part of this problem is to explain how the number line shows that the inequality is correct. Well, we know that the number that's closest to 0 is going to be the larger number, and -2 is closer to 0. Therefore, it is the larger number. Our second problem for today deals with temperatures. Let's read the problem together. Are you ready? Let's go. The lowest temperature ever recorded on Earth was -89 degrees Celsius in Antarctica. The average temperature on Mars is about -65 degrees Celsius. Which is warmer, the coldest temperature on Earth or the average temperature on Mars? Explain. Write an inequality that matches your answer. There are two things we need to do in order to completely answer our problem. First, we need to answer the question, which is warmer, the coldest temperature on Earth or the average temperature on Mars, and we have to explain. Well, thinking about negative numbers, I know that the number that will be closest to 0 on a number line is the largest. And if I relate this to temperatures on a thermometer, the negative temperature that is closest to 0 will be the warmer temperature. Remember, a thermometer is an example of a vertical number line. Now, of course, we know that when the temperatures are above 0, those represent warmer temperatures because the number is positive. And when the temperature is below 0, those temperatures are colder because the numbers are negative. Okay. So where would we plot negative 89 and negative 65 on a number line? Do you know? That's it. Negative 65 is between negative 60 and negative 70. And negative 89 is very close to negative 90 on the number line. So which number is closer to 0? Based on our number line, negative 65 is closer, which means that the average temperature on Mars is warmer. Now let's write an inequality to match our answer. That's the second thing that we have to do. Okay, now what symbol would I have to put? Negative 89, I know that that number is smaller than negative 65. Okay, so then I will put a less than symbol because negative 89 is less than negative 65. Or I can write it another way and put the greater than symbol. Negative 65 is greater than negative 89. In our previous problem, we looked at lowest recorded and average temperature on Earth and Mars. Now let's extend that problem a little further. The diagram shows the planets of our solar system and their mean temperatures in degrees Celsius. Carrie says the mean temperature on Jupiter is greater than the mean temperature on Mars because negative 110 is the larger number. Explain why Carrie's reasoning is incorrect. Remember what we discussed about number lines? The negative number that is closer to 0 will be the larger number. So looking at the mean temperature on Mars, which is negative 65, and Jupiter, which is negative 110, let's decide which one is closer to 0. That's right, negative 65 is closer to 0. Carrie thought that Jupiter's temperature is greater because he must have just looked at the number itself, 110, without considering the negative sign in front of it. Because actually, negative 110 is less than negative 65. And we can see that on our number line. Even when we put the numbers in order from coldest to warmest, we still see that Mars is close to 0 and the positive numbers. Let's put them in order. We have Neptune, which is negative 200. Now we're putting these numbers in order from coldest to warmest. So our coldest temperature is Neptune, negative 200. Then Uranus is negative 195. Saturn is negative 140. Jupiter is negative 110. Mars is negative 65. Earth is 15. Now we're getting into the positive numbers. Mercury is 167. And Venus is 464. So we just put the numbers in order from coldest to warmest. This further shows Carrie's reasoning was incorrect because Mars, which is negative 65, is still closer to Earth, which is the positive numbers, which means it is closer to 0. Let's revisit our goal for today. Our goal was, I can explain how to use the number line to compare integers. How did we accomplish this? You said it. We started out comparing -2 and -9. Then we compared temperatures on Earth, Mars, and Jupiter. We learned today that a number line can assist us with comparing numbers because the closer a negative number is to 0, the larger the number. Congratulations! That's our show for 6th grade today. 7th grade will be coming up next, so stay tuned. And remember, you can always count on us.
I'm Coach Hubbard, and today we're going to look at boat rental cost. Did you ever think math was associated with renting a boat? Did you know I coach a rowing team? Today, I'm taking my high school rowing team on a 12-day trip. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to calculate the discount, plot points on a graph, write and solve an algebraic equation. Are we ready? Let's begin. The table shows the cost of renting a boat for different amounts of time. We need to determine the missing values in the table. Do you see a pattern? What's a strategy we could use to check the pattern? Let's find the value of the two ratios in the table. Let's look at the relationship between dollars and days. Looking at the ratio, I'm going to divide $180 by 3 days, and my unit rate is $60 per day. The next ratio, I'm going to divide $300 by 5 days. My unit rate is still $60 per day. Now we know for 1 day, the cost of renting the boat is $60. Let's find the missing values in the table. If you noticed, I've added another row. This additional row now shows the unit rate. So let's begin. Remember, if the same unit rate keeps repeating, we have a constant of proportionality. So if I apply the unit rate to the values in my table, let's see what happens. I divided $120 by the unit rate of $60. That means I rented the boat for 2 days. Let's move down further into the table. I rented the boat for 8 days. That means I paid $60 per day. So my total cost would be $480. Remember, if the ratios have the same value, the table represents a constant of proportionality. Looking at the ratios, I notice they all have the same unit rate, $60 per day. We have equivalent ratios. Taking this information, I can now write my equation. $60 per day, X representing the number of days, is equal to Y, the dollars for the total rental cost. Let's plot the values from the table onto the graph. What do you notice about the graph? You are so right. The graph is a straight line through the origin, and the relation between time and rental costs is proportional. So the graph is proportional. Can you find the constant of proportionality on the graph? You remembered. When X is 1 day, the total rental cost Y is $60. Using the graph, we can write the equation to represent the total cost of renting a boat Y for X days. Let's look at the constant. Remember the unit rate? Once again, the equation is $60 per day is equal to the total rental cost of the boat. The boat rental company gave my high school rowing team a discount of $10 off for every 4 days of rental. So I took out my calendar and I started circling those groups of 4 days. If you notice, I've circled 3 groups of 4. Every 4 days I rented the boat, I received a $10 off discount. Gave me a total discount of $30. Not bad. Let's determine the total cost we had to pay to rent a boat. We wrote our equation and we deducted the $30 for our discount. We used substitution for the variable X for the number of days. We found the product of $60 per day times 12 days, which gave you a total of $720. Subtracting the discount, our total cost for renting the boat is $690. I paid 30% of the total rental cost, so each team member did not have to pay so much. I wrote my percent as a fraction, 35 out of 100, which was equal to 0.35 or 35 hundredths. I multiplied 35% times the total cost for renting the boat, and my 35% share is $241.50 out of $690. Afterwards, the 15 team members divided the remaining rental costs evenly. After paying my 35%, $448.50 out of $690 was left. What do you think the team members did? You're right. They divided $448.50 evenly. Each team member paid $29.90. Let's review today's lesson. First, we found the discount. Next, we wrote the equation for the total cost of renting the boat. Finally, we solved for part of the whole cost of renting a boat for the coach and the team members. That's it for 7th grade today. The next segment will be for our 8th grade students. See you next time. Remember, you can always count on us.
Welcome back to Count on Us. I am Coach Wyndham here with your 8th grade content on reasoning and modeling. I have some very helpful problem-solving strategies that I want to share with you. Our lesson for today addresses concepts in geometry. So let's get started. The literacy strategy that I want to highlight for today is the 3-read. We use the 3-read strategy to make sense of problems. This strategy is helpful when you have a problem that you need to revisit more than once to make sense of the problem and solve it. Each read requires the students to narrow their focus on specific parts of the problem. During the first read, you have to unlock the prompt by underlining the question and any directions or important information. In the second read, you have to determine what the problem is asking you to do. And you have to be able to state what you should do first and be able to justify. For the last read, you will determine what mathematics is needed to solve this problem, and you should be able to explain. Are you ready to give it a go? In this problem, we are looking at angle relationships of parallel lines cut by transversals. We will begin with read 1. We have to unlock the prompt by underlining the question and any directions or important information. I want to make sure that I pay close attention to questions that I need to answer and important information that will help me answer each question. Here, I have underlined the words parallel and perpendicular because these words will help me determine the values of specific angles. I also underlined the questions and directions. Let's keep going. After unlocking the prompt, you can determine what you need to do from the question or direction words. In this case, we have what, justify, and include. These words tell me that I have to answer a question and follow certain directions. I see there are 3 things that I need to do. I need to find the measure of angle 3. Then I need to find the measure of angle 4. Lastly, I must justify the measure of angle 4 in 2 ways using my knowledge of angle relationships. Now that we know what we need to do, let's keep going. We have one more read. In read 3, we have to determine what mathematics is needed to solve this problem. We also need to use our knowledge of angle relationships of parallel lines cut by transversals in order to calculate the measure of angle 3 and angle 4. Now it's time to analyze the lines. Angle 1 is vertical to the 42-degree angle. So that means the measure of angle 1 is 42 degrees because vertical angles are congruent. Also, angle 1 and angle 3 are corresponding angles of the parallel lines. Corresponding angles are congruent, so that means the measure of angle 3 is also 42 degrees. I see that angle 3 and angle 4 form a right angle because of the small square in the corner on the other side of line Q. These are considered to be complementary angles. If you subtract the measure of angle 3 from 90 degrees, you will get the measure of angle 4, 48 degrees. Next, I see that angle 4 completes a triangle. This is another way to justify the measure of angle 4 by subtracting the other angles from 180 degrees. The sum of the interior angles of a triangle measures 180 degrees. So oftentimes you can find missing angles by subtracting the sum of the given angles. In this case, we have 90 degrees and 42 degrees, and so we are looking for angle 4. Now that we have completed our 3 reads, we can answer the questions. For part A, what is the measure of angle 3? The measure of angle 3 is 42 degrees. We were able to use our 3 reads to help us determine that by using our knowledge of angle relationships. For part B, justify 2 ways that you know the measure of angle 4. Include your knowledge of angle relationships. The measure of angle 4 is 48 degrees because angle 4 completes the triangle. Also, angle 4 is complementary to the measure of angle 3, forming a 90-degree angle. Let's review. Were we able to find the measure of angle 3? Yes, we were. Did we use our knowledge of angle relationships to justify the measure of angle 4 in 2 ways? Yes, we did. I think we're ready to try one more. We are going to extend our thinking just a little more with a bonus question. Part C. What is the measure of angle 2? Part D. Justify that you know the measure of angle 2. Include your knowledge of angle relationships. If we use the information that we know, we can find the measure of angle 2. First, I see that angle 2 is right next to the 42-degree angle. When angles are adjacent to each other on the same line, they are said to be supplementary. Supplementary angles have a sum of 180 degrees. In order to find the measure of angle 2, I would need to subtract 42 degrees from 180 degrees. Let's do some math. 180 minus 42 equals 138. So I could say that the measure of angle 2 is 138 degrees. D. I must justify that I know the measure of angle 2. As I stated earlier, angle 2 is supplementary to the 42-degree angle. Therefore, the difference between 180 and 42 is 138 degrees. Let's see our explanation. The measure of angle 2 is 138 degrees. Angle 2 is supplementary to the 42-degree angle because they are adjacent to each other on the same line. Supplementary angles have a sum of 180 degrees. Wow, that was great. Let's review. Were we able to find the measure of angle 2? Yes, we were. Did we use our knowledge of angle relationships to justify the measure of angle 2? Yes, we did. Great work. In closing, we learned that you can use the 3-read strategy to make sense of a problem and solve it. Using the 3-read method really helps us to focus on the important information and identify the steps needed to answer the question. I hope this was helpful for you too. Well, 8th grade, that's our show for today. We hope to see you back next week. Remember, you can always count on us. See you next time.
to another Count on Us with Partnering with Parents. I'm Coach Brenner, and today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some things you can do at home to make sure that your students are prepared, whether they are continuing at home distance learning or if they're beginning to start in-person learning in the classroom. Some of these things just to make it easier on you as the parent when these changes are taking place, and also these changes for students since it's been almost a year or over a year since students have been back in the buildings. So throughout this episode, we're going to be talking about some of these different things that you can do at home to make sure that your child is as ready and prepared as possible when they go back in the buildings, or if they're continuing with distance learning at home. The resources that all students have, whether they're at home or they are inside the classroom, and they've been using this year as well, are some different resources through Clever. Now, in order for your child to sign in through Clever, they just have to sign in with their ID and their password, just as they would log on to their Chromebook or their email. Just as your students have been using possibly anything from Google Classroom this year, or to anything else that your child's teacher has asked them to sign on to. So in Clever, there's a bunch of different resources that are paid for by the county. One of them is Dreambox. Hopefully, if your schools have them and have distributed all the passwords and IDs, your children have been getting onto Dreambox. Dreambox is something that helps your child with on-grade level math standards to make sure they're staying where they need to within their own grade level. It also is challenging, and it's kind of just fun in some games. There's some other different apps down here. We know our Big Ideas that connects to some different textbooks. We're not necessarily using that right now, but for the older students that are those 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that have Big Ideas Learning, they can use that. Now, to K through 5, they're in Envision, so don't worry too much about that. IXL, that's another site that your students can practice different math problems. It's connected to standards as well. And these are just some things that your students can do at home. Now, one of the main things that students have been using this year in K through 5 for their online resources and tools is Braining Camp. Okay, and we're going to take a look at Braining Camp just to show you some of the different online tools that your students can use when solving math problems. Braining Camp is one of the apps that has been embedded into most of the activities that your students have been doing online this school year during distance learning. It's something that's going to be embedded in the activities and tasks that your students are doing the rest of the school year as well. Now, K through 2, we know that the majorities these are still going to be useful to them, and we know 3 through 5, some of the other ones such as algebra tiles, coordinate board, but these are all different resources for students to use. Now, one of the main things to build that fluency and understanding for students is using base 10 blocks. So we'll just take a look at it. We'll click on it. With the base 10 blocks, say students are adding a 3-digit number. Let's say the number is going to be 243 plus 325. We can put that text right there, and we know that that is something that they're adding. We literally can make 243 1, 2, 3, 4, and then here, if we wanted to do 325 down here, we can move these down. And the cool thing with this is really giving your students an opportunity to kind of just check their work because down here at the bottom, it'll tell the total. Now, if they click that I, it'll take it away. But if they really want to just check to see if they did their work right, say they're doing their work in a notebook, or they're doing their work in Pear Deck, this is just an option for them to come and check their work to make sure that it is correct. So this is how, and there's a lot of different ways that they can use this. There's decimals, so those 4th and 5th graders with tenths and hundredths, they can use that as well. So this is one of those concrete models that really help support student understanding in terms of math. Now back here for the younger students, we have the tiles, there's Cuisenaire rods, geoboards, hundreds board. There's just a lot of different things that students can use in order to help support their learning. So as a parent, check some of these out. Ask your students to show them, your child to show you how to utilize these so that you can get familiar with them as well. And if you have a little bit of time, you can log in through Clever with your student ID, your student's ID, and you can actually go through and check some of these out. So one of the organizational strategies that we've been working with students actually over the last couple years is the 3-read protocol. So it's important for you as a parent to understand how your child should be using this when they're solving math word problems. This is an organizational tool for students to kind of just get the problem started. So in a 3-read protocol, if you hear a teacher talking about this or your child mentioning this, this is how it's set up. So with a 3-read, the first read, students reading the problem. So what's going on in the actual problem? So they're just reading the problem as it is. The second read, what are the quantities? So what are the units? So they start pulling the units out of that particular problem. And then when they read the problem the third time, they actually come up with some math questions they can ask based on the information. Now, when teachers... All right, so let's look at this example. It's titled Books, and we're doing that 3-read. So the first read, we're going to read through the information and break down. So at first, we have Miss Smith's class library has 423 books. 50 books were borrowed by students. Okay, so we know that this is math, and we're doing something. We're going to be either adding on or taking away. So we're reading through to understand the first 2 sentences. Notice there's no question yet. Second, we'll pull out the quantities and the units. The quantities are the numbers. The units are what's connected to those numbers. So the quantity 423, the units are books. In the second sentence, 50 books, the 50 are the quantities and the books are the units. So third read, we'll read through it and we'll pick possibly a question that we could answer. Miss Smith's class library had 423 books. 50 books were borrowed by students. So a possible question could be, how many books are left if the 50 books are borrowed? So let's see what a possible question could be. How many books were left in the classroom library? So being able to come up with that question allows the students to realize what they might have to do when solving for the problem. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Partnering with Parents. Today, we looked at some of those online resources that your child is using at home or in school. These are some different ways that they're learning how to do math on their computer. This is also some different ways that you can help support them going through some of those online tools, learning how to use the base 10 blocks or color tiles or the geoboards. Those are just some things that you can do. We know you don't have a lot of free time, but in your free time, that your child can show you how to use some of these tools. We also went through a strategy that your child's using in their math classroom, which is the 3-read protocol. In these 3-week protocols, students are breaking down word problems. It's important for students to show their comprehension in terms of what the question's asking them, to grasp the understanding so that when they're solving it, they know exactly what they need to do when getting to that final answer. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. We look to see you guys in the future. Partnering with Parents episodes. I'm Coach Brenner. You guys have a great day.
4, 3, 2, 1.